insurers are fighting back, armed with covert surveillance systems.
How they think they can get away with it, I don't know, when the evidence from the camera is so clear.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques.
This is connected to a bank account and a second mobile phone number.
And a newly formed dedicated police unit.
Police, get back!
They're catching the criminals red-handed. All those con men, scammers, cheats on the fiddle, now they're caught in the act, and claimed and shamed. Today, a whiplash claimant with an outlandish story.
She was arguing that she was in two places at once.
IFED raids a suspected fraud gang.
Open the door, it's going to get smashed in!
And the Lancashire police leave nothing to doubt.
You will be caught, and you will be punished, and your assets will be stripped from you.
Gloucester, not a place you'd associate with violent gang crime, but on the 11th of August 2007, 38-year-old local David Russell was found staggering near his home, covered in blood and with 7 nails buried in his body. He'd been the victim of a violent and unprovoked attack.
He spun me around, grabbed hold of my bottom of my T-shirt with one hand and then pushed what I now know to be this orange nail gun into my chest.
2 of the nails were buried in David Russell's forearm. More worryingly, another 5 had been pumped into his chest. 1 lodged just an inch from his heart. The attackers had not been found. DC Dean Morse was given the job of catching them.
Mr. Russell's allegation obviously sent, concern through the community. The last thing you want is reports of a gang going around with a nail gun and basically attacking people and obviously shooting them with nails.
From his hospital bed, David Russell expressed the fears held by the local community.
You can pick on a 30-odd-year-old bloke, they're going to pick on anybody, sort of thing, so...
His plea was to have a dramatic effect on the investigation. It attracted the attention of an old boss who had some interesting information about Mr. Russell for the police.
On his CV, when he was employed by the company, that he said that he had spent 18 years in the Royal Marines, that he had done 3 tours of duty in Northern Ireland, and that he had also served in the Gulf War.
Some of which were complete lies. So DC Morse did some research on the victim.
This then led me on to making inquiries with the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board. Criminal Injuries basically told me that he had reported a crime in Avon and Somerset in 2004.
And to his astonishment, DC Morse found that in that incident, David was the victim of an unmotivated attack. The weapon, a nail gun. The number of nails removed from his body, 7. On that occasion, his insurer paid out £4,400.
When you suddenly have a previous allegation, exactly the same number of nails, with a method of doing it, basically, that is exactly the same, you know that you've got somebody there who is either the unluckiest man in Britain or is a consummate liar. We went to arrest Mr. Russell, and he broke down fairly quickly in an interview and fully admitted that he had made up both the stories in Gloucester and down in Bristol.
David Russell appeared at Gloucester Crown Court. Pleading guilty, he was sentenced to 2.5 years imprisonment for perverting the course of justice.
He was very remorseful as to his actions, and he has fully regretted what's taken place.
The IFB sends out a warning to repeat offenders.
We now have all the tools at our disposal to be able to investigate and prosecute.
And a bus company faces a stubborn fraudster.
She, at great expense of the public purse, decided that she was going to plead not guilty.
In the fight against the growing problem of insurance fraud, an elite police squad have come together to form IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
Insurance fraudsters are hurting us in our pockets. That's not right. IFED have been set up to combat that problem, and we will do so by making arrests all over the country.
This dedicated team works tirelessly to bang up the crooks and con men, getting rich off other people's money.
Police, get back!
If you commit insurance fraud, there's every chance that IFED are going to come knocking on your door and bringing you to justice.
Police, don't move, stay where you are!
By April 2012, after only 6 months of operating, it had already busted 80 fraudsters, adding up to £12 million of fraud under investigation.
Insurance fraud is seen at the moment as an easy touch. IFED are setting out to stop that and make these organised crime groups think again.
It's 5:40 a.m. and IFED is executing a multi-location raid on the members of a suspected fraudulent accident management company. These types of bogus outfits work by taking your car and making it look as though it's been in a crash with a second vehicle. They will then pay you to take responsibility for the bogus crash, leaving them to make a large claim for the damage to the second vehicle against your insurance company. IFED has one team preparing to raid a place of business and another at a residential address.
Right.
The team suspects that inside this flat lives a member who may have been involved in the fraudulent activity.
Open the door, it's going to get smashed in! Good lad.
Your safety in mind at the moment, so we do some searching in this flat. I'm just going to place some handcuffs on you, okay? Just put your hand out for me,
Assisting IFED on the raid is the Tactical Aid Unit. Having gained entry to the flat, DS Mark Forster briefs them on the case.
He's introduced various people to this accident management company, provided names, addresses for claimants, basically.
Yeah.
So any documentation in relation to names, addresses, written on scrap bits of paper. We know that the accidents that have been fraudulently submitted to the insurance companies involve high-value vehicles, and a lot of money is being made by credit hire. In other words, replacement vehicles, some of which they're charging the insurance companies £300 a day for, and these are vehicles that they've had for up to 18 months. Lovely job.
Even before the team starts the search for fraudulent documents, they come across some cannabis.
Is that just all paraphernalia in there?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Is that...
Cannabis they're going to bag up and take with them then.
Oh, they found?
Caution, yeah.
They found, well, what small amount is it?
Yeah, well, an eighth, something like that.
IFED came here for evidence of fraudulent activity. In one of the bedrooms, a significant find is made.
Number of SIM cards here. Somewhere up to, I don't know, about a dozen or so SIM cards, another 3 there. Well, as I say, it's a common theme for criminals to use more than one mobile phone and certainly more than one sort of SIM card. It sort of assists to cover their tracks, etc., assists with their criminality, and basically it makes it a lot more difficult for us to detect who they're contacting, who's contacting them, etc.
DS Forster is called back to the lounge by one of his officers, tasked with analysing paperwork.
Suffered a fall from a ladder in 2005, sustained a heel fracture. He had an MRI in 2007, revealed protrusion.
He probably just keeps trying to claim, doesn't he? And he's got appeals with...
It's documentation that relates to a personal injury claim. We're just looking to see whether it may form part of a personal injury claim that may be fraudulent, or whether it is a legitimate claim.
The raid location has already filled a lot of evidence bags. DS Forster suspects he has found a piece of criminal research.
It's a printed picture from Google Maps Street View. This is the sort of thing that we do come across quite often with people who are involved in staged or contrived accident claims.
The printout contains a detailed description of the crash, including dates, times and positioning of the cars.
So, and underneath that it says weather, damp, wet. And then it says driver male, 2 males, which are presumably passengers or other occupants in that vehicle.
The suspect is arrested and the search for evidence is over. This half of the double raid is complete. The second IFED team executes the next phase of the raid.
You're under arrest, suspicion of conspiracy to defraud.
The UK is the whiplash capital of Europe. Nearly 1,200 whiplash claims are made on our roads every day. The cost to the NHS of treating whiplash has been estimated at £8 million a year. It's December 2008, and the W15 bus is winding its way through the busy streets of Walthamstow, north-east London.
Our driver was driving along a quite narrow and busy suburban road in London. There were cars parked on both sides. It's quite difficult for him to get through.
Unfortunately, an error of judgment from the driver resulted in the bus scraping a parked car. The owner of the damaged car, Patricia Walker, confronted the driver about the scrape.
Patricia Walker claimed that she had been sitting in the car with her husband, that the bus had hit the car and that she'd suffered injuries. She said that she suffered injuries to her neck and that she was still struggling with the symptoms 4 or 5 months later.
It was an unfortunate incident, and Arriva was going to accept full responsibility for the collision and the whiplash suffered by Mrs. Walker. That was until the bus driver's report was submitted.
Our driver had done a good job in completing the report form, which he has to complete after every incident, and he'd made it quite clear that there was only one person in the vehicle which he had hit.
Before any kind of payout could be arranged, this difference of opinion had to be sorted. So Arriva analysed the bus's onboard CCTV footage.
Our buses are fitted with high-definition CCTV cameras, forward-facing, rear-facing, internal cameras.
And when they analysed the footage, the bus company didn't like what they saw. Mrs. Walker wasn't in the car at the time of the collision. She was, in fact, crossing the road behind the bus. The footage shows her knocking on the bus's back window after witnessing the crash.
Unfortunately for Patricia Walker, it showed her not actually inside the vehicle as she claimed in her claim form. And when the bus actually passed her, Patricia Walker then walks behind the bus. You then see her on the footage actually looking down the side of the bus at the damage to her vehicle and then entering the bus and talking to the bus driver.
A fair cop, surely, but not in Patricia's eyes.
When we showed Patricia Walker the footage, she looked shocked, and her basic answer was quite simply, "I know how it looks, officer. That is me on the footage. I cannot explain it, but I was inside the vehicle at the time of the collision." So effectively, she was arguing that she was in two places at once.
The police and we thought that she would plead guilty and go away quietly with whichever sentence the court thought appropriate. But no, she, at great expense to the public purse, decided that she was going to plead not guilty. Mrs. Walker seemed to think that the jury might believe that she could be in two places at once. Not surprisingly, the jury did not believe her.
Patricia Walker was charged with fraud by false representation. The jury found her guilty, and on the 27th of May 2011, she was sentenced to 12 months community service and a 3-month curfew.
I think she just made a wrong decision on this occasion, and why she pleaded not guilty, I have no idea, but I think she's regretted that decision. I think she was also very lucky not to go to prison.
For us, CCTV cameras are worth their weight in gold. We want a clear message of deterrence to go out to people that if you are involved in an accident with a Arriva bus and it's our fault and you are genuinely injured, then we want to pay you fairly and quickly. But if you're not injured and you're out to make a quick buck, then we'll do all we can to take criminal action against you.
Meet Munsif Dad and his two sons Amir and Nadeem. It's November 2005, and they've just submitted a £1,430 claim for repairs to the storm-damaged roof of a terraced property they own in their hometown of Nelson, Lancashire. That same month, the Dad family has also submitted a second claim for storm damage to the roof of a second property they own nearby. The Dads received payouts from the insurance company for both claims. 7 months later, in June 2006, in what seems to be an incredible stroke of bad luck, one of the houses again suffers storm damage to the roof. As before, the Dads submit a claim for the damage and wait for the money to come in. But 1 170 miles away in London, something was happening that would stop the dads from receiving a penny from their insurers. The formation of the Insurance Fraud Bureau, the IFB. The IFB was set up to combat organised insurance crime in the UK. By persuading a previously secretive insurance industry to share information, the IFB has become a very powerful weapon in the fight against insurance fraud. The IFB had barely reached its first birthday when they were approached by an insurer with suspicions about a number of claims coming from the small town of Nelson. Among them were the dads' claims for storm-damaged roofs.
The insurer first became suspicious with the claims in Operation Flash because a number of the cases were close to policy inceptions and the circumstances of the claims were remarkably similar from one to another.
In order to learn more about Mr. Dad, the IFB put his details through their specialist software. The software has access to information from nearly every insurer in the country. Armed with just the name and address of a single policyholder, the software can create a map of that individual's insurance agreements. It's a very quick process.
I could start by showing you what a genuine person in our system might look like.
The average policyholder would have a simple map with just a few connections, raising no suspicion from the IFB.
Here's an example of one of the properties in Operation Flash. This property in the middle was an address that was owned by Amir Dad. In less than 2 years, he submitted 9 claims, and each of these icons highlighted in red represents a claim against one of the insurance companies that we worked with.
The software indicated that Mr. Dad was suspiciously well insured, so the IFB took the case back up to Lancashire to get extra help. Leading the investigation for the Lancashire Police was DI Dave Groombridge. He and his team recognised a pattern in the claims being made by the dads.
I think the offenders in this case were clever in keeping their individual claims down to a minimum, so it was volume claims which netted a huge amount of money collectively rather than just 1 or 2 small big claims.
DI Dave Groombridge and his team unearthed a total of £104,000 worth of claims made by the dads. The Lancashire team also discovered the dads had not restricted their scamming to just home insurance.
There was a number of claims which were quite outlandish, principally dogs that didn't exist, never had existed. After 2 or 3 premium payments, these dogs were miraculously lost or stolen. There was also large amounts of jewellery, apparently stolen in burglaries, which indeed later turned up in the possession of the claimants. Complete false claim.
After 2 years of investigating, the IFB and Lancashire Police had collected indisputable evidence of fraudulent activity by the dads. The most astonishing information being the schedule of works carried out on the dads' 2 properties. 2004, storm-damaged roof at house number 1. September 2005, rear wall damaged by vehicle at house number 2. October 2005, wall damaged at house number 1. November 2005, roof damaged at house number 1 and 2. March 2006, wall damaged at house 1. April 2006, roof damaged at house 1. May 2006, wall damaged at house 1. June 2006, wall damaged at house 1 and 2. June 2006, roof damaged at house 2. The Lancashire Police were ready to strike.
The main conspirators, the main people behind this scam, were arrested in September 2009 by Lancashire Police. They executed warrants at a number of addresses, supported by staff from the IFB.
A judge at Preston Crown Court called it a clever and determined fraud. Mr. Munsif Dad was handed a suspended 9-month prison sentence. His sons Nadeem and Amir were each in prison for 15 months.
I think their criminal activities dominated their lives, and the vast majority of the trappings of their wealth had come about through their criminal behaviour. We pay increased insurance premiums to cover the losses incurred by the companies through this sort of fraud. But times are changing, and the police are prepared to work with other agencies, and collectively we will pursue these people and be under no misapprehension. You will be caught, and you will be punished, and your assets will be stripped from you.
Today, IFED is executing raids on a suspected motor fraud gang.
Open the door, it's going to get smashed in!
Alongside the arrest of a suspect earlier, the second IFED team continues to search 2 further properties. A large search is planned at a business address where they hope to secure more evidence. First, IFED heads to the home of another suspect.
From the City of London police. We're from the police.
Yeah?
Yeah. Can we come in, please?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
You're under arrest, okay, on suspicion of conspiracy to defraud.
For what?
You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention or question something which you later on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The suspect works for the accident management company, and they believe is involved in the alleged fraudulent activity there. DC Declan Mallow searches the flat for evidence of fraud.
Shouldn't be too long. Once you finish searching, we'll then take you to the custody suite, and then at some point later on today, you'll be interviewed.
This is the lady's main bedroom. The other bedroom's been searched and nothing's been found, so this is the last room to do in the flat.
DC Mallow takes some paperwork for further investigation. With a second suspect arrested, IFED has just one more location to raid.
Just had news from DS Finnegan that we've got access to another premises, so we're just waiting for further update from him to see if he needs additional resources there when we've finished here.
With a 1,000 square metre business to search, the IFED team based here will need plenty of help. Leading the search is DS Tom Finnegan, who's just been made aware of the recent arrests.
We intend to carry out a search of her office very shortly. As I said, there are other locked offices in there that are the offices of the directors. We intend to effect entry to those offices shortly, and we'll see what comes out of that search.
There's plenty of security protecting this workplace, but IFED is used to such measures and has come armed with a crowbar and a battering ram. It's not just about brute force, though. Today, DS Finnegan's IFED unit is comprised of specialist investigators brought in anticipation of complex evidence.
My colleague here is specially trained to interrogate computers, laptops, anything of digital, electronic nature. We have dedicated financial investigators, and this gentleman is one of those investigators, so he's here specifically to have a look at the financial documents in relation to the company.
Looking at an intimidating workload, DS Finnegan calls in the help of DC Mallow and DI Rogers.
Right, the sort of things that we'll be looking for are these sorts of files, which say referrals, and within those we'd expect to find documentation of people that have allegedly been involved in accidents and the subsequent claims that have then transpired from those accidents. Just to do
Every scrap of evidence is needed if the IFED team is to get a conviction, and it's mounting up.
This is an office which is definitely interested in searching. We'd expect to see whiteboards on the wall, sort of indicating the work that they're currently involved in, and we would think that these are the names likely of people involved in staged accidents that haven't occurred.
The financial investigator makes a discovery.
What he's gone through so far, we can see large sums of money going through their business account, which might be all legitimate, but at this stage it's certainly of interest to us.
DS Finnegan's IT specialist is extracting large amounts of potential evidence from the computers.
What my colleague's doing at this time is taking an image, a forensic image of that server, which we can use at a later date, examine it for any evidence that might be on it, and obviously then it can be prepared as an exhibit for the case. Okay.
in, IFED spends over 50 man-hours extracting, deciphering and bagging evidence on site. It's been a successful raid. IFED has enough evidence to fill a van, making DS Finnegan a happy man.
We believe this particular accident claim company has been responsible for putting a large number of fraudulent claims forward to the insurance industries. That, of course, when they turn out to be fraudulent and the insurance industry spend that money or pay that money out, results in you and I and all members of the British public paying more for their insurance. We, at the end of the day, are covering in our premiums the cost of fraud that's been committed.
The owners of the accident management company were also arrested, and along with the 2 suspects arrested in the IFED raids, are all now on bail. If charged with conspiracy to defraud and found guilty, all 4 could be facing 10 years in prison. Insurance fraud in the UK is reaching epidemic levels, and it's costing us billions of pounds a year. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injury claims, even fake deaths. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year, it's adding up to £50 to your insurance bill. Insurers are fighting back, armed with covert surveillance systems, sophisticated data analysis techniques.
This is connected to a bank account and a second mobile phone number.
And a newly formed dedicated police unit.
Police, get back!
They're catching the criminals red-handed. All those con men, scammers, cheats on the fiddle, now they're caught in the act, and claimed and shamed. Today, the police insurance fraud team, IFED, is hunting down suspects.
He needs to phone, because otherwise we'll come back and we will keep coming back until we get him, OK? Because this is quite serious, it's not going to go away.
A would-be con man comes a cropper.
There's no way that it could have happened as it was described.
And a claimer is shamed in the gym.
There was no form of dysfunction visible in any way, shape or form.
This is Milton Keynes, home to Michael Richards. 8 years ago, Michael was a passenger in a serious car crash. The vehicle smashed into a wall, killing the driver, but Michael pulled through. Unfortunately, the driver didn't have insurance, so Michael's case was passed on to the MIB, Motor Insurers Bureau, an organisation set up and funded by the insurance industry.
The MIB is there to compensate innocent victims of uninsured and untraced drivers. And that means a whole variety of injuries. It could be a minor injury, it could be a catastrophic injury. We're there to help those people to provide a fund from which they can claim compensation.
Details of the crash and Michael's medical treatment were passed to the MIB.
Michael Richards said that he had a head injury as well as other injuries, and he presented in a way suggesting that he had such a bad brain injury he was virtually mute. He was saying he needed care, he was saying he needed a lot of help, he was saying he could hardly speak, and that he needed lots of help and assistance to carry on his normal life. He made a claim to the MIB because the driver wasn't insured, and that was his only route potentially to compensation. what's called a schedule of loss, which is essentially a shopping list type claim that's presented to us by his lawyers, totaled some £2.35 million.
The severity of the head injury that Michael was claiming for meant that the MIB was dealing with a huge payout for care and assistance. So it was natural for them to look closely at the case and order medical examinations.
When he saw one of our experts, he uttered 15 words in an 80-minute interview. He said that he was seriously impaired by his injuries.
But as the MIB continued its investigations, they noticed some strange inconsistencies.
Subsequently, we obtained his police records. Now, this showed, subsequent to the accident in the car, he was arrested for another offence. And when we obtained the PACE interview notes, it was quite clear that he was talking perfectly normally to the police officers. And also, it was also clear that he'd been giving us a false address.
The MIB was by now so suspicious that it called in expert investigators specialising in covert filming.
We live in a surveillance society. Effectively, fraudsters are aware that they might be placed under surveillance. And to that end, we have to stay one step ahead of the game. And the equipment that we have to use has to be cutting edge. It's as simple as that.
Using all its expertise to stay hidden, the surveillance team went deep undercover to find out what was really going on.
What we did discover when we eventually turned up and undertook the surveillance on him was that he was visiting a gym. Filming in a gym is obviously going to be quite a difficult scenario for the operatives to find themselves in. They're likely to be in sportswear. There's not a lot of room to hide a camera in a pair of shorts or a sports vest.
But they overcame these challenges and were able to film Michael without being detected. What they discovered was jaw-dropping. He was talking and bantering with other gym users.
There was no form of dysfunction visible in any way, shape or form. He was a man that was just going about his normal routine or daily life and wasn't hampered in any way, shape or form by the purported injury that he'd sustained.
It was solid evidence of lying and fraud.
We presented this evidence to Mr. Richards via his lawyers, who promptly withdrew his claim.
But the MIB wasn't prepared to let the case drop. It wanted to see Michael's attempt to defraud them punished.
We took the case to court. The judge accepted that he had tried to mislead the court. He was guilty of contempt of court, and consequently, Mr. Richards received a prison sentence.
Michael was sentenced to 4 months in prison for falsely claiming £2.35 million.
For us, it felt excellent that someone who was claiming a 7-figure sum, their case was pushed all the way through into the criminal court. It felt as if that person had received their just desserts.
One of the largest ever insurance fraud rings is busted.
In that 18 months, they could have made £3.2 million.
And a swindling claimer is shamed for life.
What this shows you is that it's not okay to do that. And do you realise what impact that will have on your friends and your family if you get caught?
Please get back!
Insurance fraud is on the rise. Hunting and punishing the criminals responsible is an elite police squad called the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, IFED.
The Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department was set up earlier this year with the sole intention of combating the rise in insurance fraud. We are a dedicated unit that works exclusively tackling that problem.
A growing number of fraudsters are prepared to lie and cheat their way to money they don't deserve. But they better watch their backs, because IFED is on the case.
Since our go-live date early this year, we've effected over 120 arrests in the first 6 months, and we are continuing to work up and down the country, bringing these offenders to justice.
IFED is determined to win the fight against fraudsters.
We're out to stop them in their tracks. There's every chance that an IFED detective may come knocking on their door to arrest them for committing an insurance fraud.
Yeah, we're looking to go to 2 addresses today to arrest 2 suspects who we believe have conspired together to plan a crash between a coach and a car, purely for the purposes of submitting fake personal injury whiplash claims. The evidence that we'll be looking at today, we'll be looking to find any documentation in relation to any of those insurance claims.
any vehicle documentation of the vehicle that was involved in the collision with the coach, and also one very important thing is mobile phones, because we believe there has been some sort of mobile phone contact both before and immediately after the crash between individuals on the coach and the main person who we know has planned this particular fraud.
IFED believes that the two suspects hoped to make money by falsely claiming for whiplash injuries sustained in the fake crash. If the claim had paid out, with numerous personal injury claims and damage to vehicles, they were set to make over £100,000. IFED needs to find their first suspect, and they also need to find evidence that links him to the car and the coach passengers. They begin their search for the suspect at his mum's house.
Police?
Oh, City Police. Who's here? Just yourself? Yeah. Where's his flat?
The first suspect's mum claims that she doesn't know where his flat is.
She's saying that he lives in his own flat, moved out 4 months ago. She doesn't know the door number, doesn't know the flat name or anything else. So she says she's got no contact number for her own son, everything else. So she's clearly lying to us, clearly obstructing us. Probably so that she can put a phone call in as soon as we've gone and sort of tip them off, really, that we're on our way.
She tells them to try his ex-partner's place, but says she doesn't know the exact address of that either.
Right, what is the front door? What colour's the front door? Let's start easy then. I do think you're lying to me, and the patience is wearing a bit thin. How do you get contact? So he doesn't phone you. Do you have a mobile? You don't have a mobile. He needs to phone, because otherwise we'll come back, and we will keep coming back until we get him, OK? Because this is quite serious. It's not going to go away.
Using the rough information she's given them, their next stop is the house of the first suspect's ex-partner.
Police. Is he in?
No, he doesn't live here with me.
Do you know his address?
No.
All right, OK.
The ex-partner has no idea where he is, and the hunt is beginning to feel like a wild goose chase. Their investigations have given them one last address to try.
He's opening up, he's opening up.
They arrive at the block of flats and quickly establish which apartment the suspects are in.
That's where they are?
Yeah.
Are they in?
I think so, I'm not sure.
Finally, it seems like they're getting closer.
Hello, mate.
Not here, mate.
He's not here. Does he live here?
Lives downstairs.
What number?
I don't know.
Yet again, the first suspect seems to have eluded them, but suddenly they get a lead about the second suspect.
Do you just live here on your own, do you?
No, I live with my son.
What's his name?
When the man reveals the name of his son, they realise they've found the second suspect. Then he backtracks and confirms the first suspect is there too.
Easy. Right, where are they?
Just hang on.
What? No, not hanging on. Hello, word with you, mate. Can you come in the front room?
But when they enter the premises, it's clear he's hiding from them.
Is he in there?
It doesn't take long to flush him out, though.
Yeah? All right. So don't give me no more all right?
Right, mate. Have a seat.
Right, you're being arrested for conspiracy to defraud, OK?
Although both suspects are under arrest, it's still far from being a watertight case. It's vital that the team find documentary evidence of the suspected fraud, or the charges won't stand up, and the whole case will be dropped.
What I don't want to do, mate, is turn this upside down and shake it, yeah? Which I will do if I have to. But if you give us what I'm asking to, there's no need for me to do that.
The enhanced security features on top-of-the-range cars means that thieves are losing out, and fraudsters are being stopped in their tracks too. Head teacher Alan Bromley drove a car that befitted his status, a BMW 3 Series. But if he'd gone for a more down-market car, he might have got away with his scam. One night, he drove to a carol service and parked nearby, keeping the keys in his possession the whole time. Afterwards, he got a lift home because he'd had a few drinks. A short time later, his car was found ablaze 6 miles away. Alan contacted his insurers to say his car had been stolen and set on fire. But right from the start, things didn't add up. Ursula Coulibaly is head of financial crime and worked on the Alan Bromley claim.
We first suspected that there may be something wrong with Alan Bromley's claim when he phoned through to our fire and theft teams. Some of the reports that we had from the police and the fire brigade, some of the information that was in there again contradicted the story that Mr Bromley gave us when he initially made his claim.
The insurers were particularly concerned about the timings Alan had given them.
Independent engineer's report that we asked for, again as part of the investigation, specifically set out if the car was stolen without keys, what tools they'd need to have to steal the car, and more importantly how long it would take. With the timings that Mr Bromley gave us and at the time that the fire brigade attended, there's no way that it could have happened as it was described.
Alarm bells were ringing, and the insurers asked a company specialising in vehicle examination to look at what was left of the car. Phil Hoyes is the engineer who performed the inspection.
When I found the vehicle, it had sustained quite heavy fire damage. The condition of the car was approaching a complete burnout.
Even so, he was still able to carry out a thorough assessment.
My remit was really quite straightforward for examining the car. It was to determine whether there were any signs of forced entry. When I got to examining the locking system and the doors, there was no sign of forced damage to the locking systems or around the door hinges or the door frames themselves or the door mechanisms.
So, if the doors hadn't been forced, then the only way into the car for a thief would have been the windows. But there was a problem there too.
A close examination inside the doors found the glass from the windows that had melted inside the doors, showing that the windows weren't smashed. If the windows had been smashed and forced entry had been gained that way, then you'd find the fragments of the glass inside the vehicle and it had melted in that position.
He hadn't lost the keys, there was no forced entry, and the windows hadn't been smashed. So how could the car have been stolen? Alan Bromley's story was going up in smoke, but he wasn't going to budge.
Despite the information and the evidence that we'd managed to gain from our investigations, Mr Bromley's been adamant throughout that he's not acted in a fraudulent manner.
There was one more piece of evidence for the insurers to analyse, and it proved to be the most important. The key to what really happened was just that, the car key. It contains a microchip, which records detailed information about the car that can be analysed later.
It does give us information such as what the mileage was at the last time it was driven and also the last time it was used. When we did the keys analysis report, it contradicted Alan Bromley's case. What it told us actually was the car had been used after that he told us he'd used it last. And in addition to that, it was just shortly before the fire brigade were called.
They now had all the evidence. The only thing missing was a motive. But luckily, the keys analysis report, together with evidence from the financial contract for the car, gave them the information they needed.
Within that contract, there was terms around how much mileage he could do per year. Once again, from the keys report, that helped us to determine that actually Mr Bromley had gone way over his mileage allowance. In the event he either gave his car back, he would either have to pay the entire financial agreement in full, or he'd have to pay the excess for the additional mileage, which was significant. We believe that was the financial motive for what happened.
With evidence and a motive, the insurers informed Mr Bromley that they wouldn't be paying his claim. At that point, the police moved in to arrest him. But even then, Alan Bromley stuck to his version of events.
Mr Bromley has always denied that the claim that he submitted was fraudulent throughout our investigation process and once it went to court.
Alan Bromley was prosecuted for false representation, and he was given a 12-week suspended sentence. Although he stood to lose a lot of money on the vehicle contract, the cost to Alan Bromley's reputation and career is arguably greater. He's currently banned from teaching.
In Mr Bromley's case, he was upstanding in the community, he was a head teacher, well thought of, and what this shows you is that it's not okay to do that. And do you realise what impact that will have on your friends and your family if you get caught? If you're ever thinking about doing something like this, think again. Insurers are a lot better at detecting fraud, and now we've got the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, and they will take action, and don't let it be you that they come to next.
While some fraudsters exaggerate claims for genuine car accidents,
And the infectious brake, yeah.
others demand compensation for collisions that never even happened. These so-called accidents are known as staged crashes and can generate a lot of money. This makes them an attractive prospect for criminal gangs. As far back as 2006, Longmeadow Farm near Luton was on the police radar as a possible setting for organised criminal activity. At the time, the police had no actual evidence of any wrongdoing, so they decided to set up a surveillance team to find out more. Detective Constable Mick Keneally, who has since retired, was part of the operation.
The purpose of doing the observations was to establish what criminality the group of people at Longmeadow Farm were involved in, if any.
And it wasn't long before the police surveillance at the farm began to bear fruit. When this blue Astra arrives at Longmeadow, it looks to be in pretty good nick. But without ever leaving the farm, 24 hours later, it's so smashed up that it's become a complete write-off. It's clear evidence of a car being deliberately damaged.
There were vehicles, obviously, clearly, that were being damaged at Longmeadow Farm, so that gave us the view that they were involved in criminal activity involved around stage-induced, exaggerated accident claims.
Staged accidents were just the start. There were more revelations to come when the police expanded their investigations.
We made contact with the insurers and established that some of the vehicles on the farm were also subject of accident claims. And from that, we were able to establish who the accident management company were that were involved in that. And that came down to a company called Swift Accident Management. It was only when we looked at who was managing all those accidents. It turns out they were in business with the people from Longmeadow Farm.
Accident management companies exist solely to manage and process claims from people involved in accidents. The link between the people who were damaging cars at Longmeadow Farm and the people who operated Swift Accident Management immediately aroused suspicion and pointed towards Swift operating fraudulently.
There are genuine accident management companies, but there are a lot of accident management companies who are either completely fraudulent or do some fraud in that they exaggerate claims, they add ghost passengers to claims, so they make money fraudulently.
Ghost passengers is a term for when an accident management company adds fictitious passengers to a genuine accident in order to bump up the amount of personal injury being claimed. It was a technique that Swift used to cheat more money out of insurers, but the fraudulent behaviour didn't stop there.
At the same office where they were, in Leagrave Road, there was a taxi firm called Kim's Fleet Cars. The manager of Kim's Fleet Cars was the brother of the manager of Swift Accident Management. So they had a number of drivers there and a number of cars that they used in fraudulent claims. So they created their own business, and they do that by staging accidents where an accident's never happened. They're completely fictitious, so that any money that's made goes directly to the accident management company, and it's a way of making a lot of money from a single claim.
There was now enough evidence to convince the police they had uncovered a huge web of criminal activity. Between them, the criminals at Swift and Longmeadow Farm were creating staged accidents on an industrial scale.
Swift Accident Management themselves were in business between August 2005 and November 2006. So in effect, they were in business for about 18 months. In the 18 months, they dealt with 180 accident claims, and out of those, there were 230 individual claims. So the extra 50 were for personal injury claims. So it was a lot in that period of time, and of course, that generates a huge amount of money.
It looks like the level of criminality didn't stop there. It seems one of the gang members was also engaged in a more basic form of theft, stealing CDs from the wrecked cars. In terms of claims already paid out and claims submitted, Swift stood to cheat the insurers out of a mind-blowing amount of money.
If you looked at what Swift could have made in that 18 months, they could have made £3.2 million.
The police operation ensured the gang operating Swift and Longmeadow Farm didn't get away with it. Once they had evidence of cars being deliberately damaged, the police moved in. The sheer scale of the criminal operation meant that 750 people gave statements, 60 people were arrested, and 36 vehicles were seized. The hearings alone lasted 3 years, and 37 people were convicted.
Police? Oh, City Police.
The Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, IFED, is on the hunt for suspects it believes are linked to an alleged crash for cash scam. After being given the runaround, IFED eventually tracks down the man they believe to be the ringleader to a flat belonging to the other suspect on their list. The IFED team cracks on with their search for evidence.
Is that them all? What I don't want to do, mate, is turn this upside down and shake it, yeah? Which I will do if I have to. But if you give us what I'm asking to, there's no need for me to do that. All right, mate.
What they're looking for is proof of the link between the two men and the accident with the coach and the car.
Mark, found two mobile phones that we're interested in. We found some documentation. I believe it links into the offence that we are investigating. We've also found a number of bank cards, which I want to compare to certain elements of the offence.
But that's just the start. As the IFED team searches the flat, they turn up signs of a separate offence.
He's got a big box of movie football kits.
So they're basically just, what, like Everton?
All different ones.
So they're all counterfeit gear, basically, then, yeah? Huh? Yeah. Right. Bag it all up.
Does it work? How old is it?
They decide to get the suspects taken away to a local police station, but the search for evidence continues.
Police, hello?
DS Mark Forster leads the search in the first suspect's flat.
This is how we found it when we've come into the bedroom. There's a box that may have been taken off the wardrobe or some other place. There's a bag here which is empty, so I can only presume that all of this documentation was in this bag. So at some time shortly before we've arrived and arrested him this morning, he's obviously had a quick rummage through this, maybe in an attempt to try and get rid of evidence, basically, that might be key to our investigation. He's obviously been tipped off the fact that we were looking for him because obviously we've been to his mother's address, we've been to his ex-partner's address. We know that when we've arrested him upstairs, his mobile phone sat on the table, ringing with his mum, trying to get in touch with him. She told us that she didn't know where he lived, didn't know his address, didn't have a contact telephone number for him or any way of getting in touch with him. So I'll be going back and having a word with Mum later on today, I think.
After sifting through the paperwork, Mark finds the evidence he's looking for, a link between the suspect and the vehicle.
We found a driving licence belonging to the driver of the car. That hit the coach up the rear. We found insurance documentation relating to the insurance of that vehicle, MOT certificates, a current MOT certificate for that vehicle, and various other scraps of paper with lists of names which we believe may be those people that were on the coach at the time of the accident who have subsequently put in personal injury claims. So it's nice because it links the gentleman who lives here to both parties, those on the coach and the driver of the car. And it's fantastic evidence for us, and certainly more than we thought we'd find.
Does it work?
Both suspects are currently on bail. If charged with conspiracy to commit fraud and found guilty, they could get a jail term of up to 10 years. In the first 6 months of operation, IFED has already busted 80 suspected fraudsters. This pair aren't the first, and they certainly won't be the last to get a knock on the door from the elite police squad. Insurance fraud in the UK is reaching epidemic levels, and it's costing us billions of pounds a year. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injury claims, even fake deaths. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year, it's adding up to £50 to your insurance bill. Insurers are fighting back. Armed with covert surveillance systems.
The equipment that we have to use has to be cutting edge. It's as simple as that.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques.
This is connected to a bank account and a second mobile phone number.
And a newly formed dedicated police unit.
Police, get back!
They're catching the criminals red-handed. All those con men, scammers, cheats on the fiddle, now they're caught in the act, and claimed and shamed. Today, the fraud enforcement team confronts a gang of suspected insurance cheats.
Police.
A debt-ridden dentist fakes his own death.
She appeared to be upset, a few tears, but I didn't believe her.
And a footballer who claimed he couldn't play has some unwanted spectators at his home ground.
Clement is now walking towards the buildings to the right of the stadium.
Welcome to Doncaster, home of James Shackell. James used to be a promising footballer with the possibility of a professional career ahead of him. That was until 2002, when he was involved in a car crash, leaving James very badly injured. Because the car he was in was uninsured, the bill for James's injuries had to be footed by the MIB, the Motor Insurers Bureau.
The MIB is a not-for-profit organisation funded by the insurance industry, set up purely to provide a means of compensation for victims of both uninsured and untraced driving.
James was not going to be a professional sportsman, but at least he had financial security. The MIB had already paid £30,000 to the Croc footballer, with tens of thousands more to hopefully follow. Over time, James experienced a gradual improvement in his condition. But in 2008, 6 years after the crash, an outlandish request for a further £1.3 million caused the MIB to look again.
Suddenly we were faced with a claim for accommodation. He was saying he needed single-storey accommodation. He was saying he needed large amounts of personal care to look after him. This didn't fit with the pattern of the injuries and the recovery that he'd been making up to that point.
This information was surprising to the MIB. Wanting to know more, it called in some expert snoops. If you want to spy on someone, the surveillance group will get the job done. It's got a team of highly trained operatives who know how to follow your every move.
We live in a surveillance society. Fraudsters are aware that they might be placed under surveillance. And to that end, we have to stay one step ahead of the game and ahead of them. That means that we have to tailor our methods accordingly, and the equipment that we have to use has to be cutting edge. It's as simple as that. Ultimately, our task is to gain an objective slice of their life. So it's simply a case of turning up and maximising the amount of footage that we can get so that others within the legal process can form a good, objective opinion of someone's capabilities.
Entering the passenger side, door closed.
Roger.
Tim and his team were given the job of filming the local soccer star.
The claimant now a passenger, backseat of a red Peugeot.
And one cold December afternoon, it found that despite suffering from difficulty concentrating,
Claimant is now walking towards the buildings to the right of the stadium.
severe fatigue, poor motivation and poor coordination,
Claimant now unsighted towards the changing rooms.
and aching in his neck and ankles, James Shackell was still capable of this.
The footage shows effectively James Shackell playing a game of football in a normal manner, running from one end of the pitch to the other and making minute decisions in kind of microseconds, whether he should head the ball, whether he should kick the ball, all those types of things. And this was clearly a man who said that he needed constant assistance from his father, and clearly his father wasn't there running beside him, telling him to score, telling him to kick the ball, telling him to head the ball. So I think that the footage really speaks volumes in this case.
Mr. Shackell was playing football for Erdlington Rovers. He had recently obtained a Man of the Match award. He was captain of the side.
I guess he felt that no one really cared, or no one would be kind of monitoring his activity overall.
This kind of behaviour is simply not acceptable. It's not acceptable to MIB, it's not acceptable to the insurance industry, and clearly the courts support that view by the extent of the sentences.
It's not okay to exaggerate. It's not okay to gain an extra amount of money from an insurer. It's still lying, and when someone lies, it's attempting to defraud someone.
James was sentenced to 12 months for contempt of court after submitting an exaggerated claim for £1.35 million. His father, Robert Shackell, also received a year's imprisonment for supporting his son's claim.
The money, ultimately, that MIB pay and the cost of running MIB all comes from premium-paying motorists. It's yours and my premium that are funding the claims that we pay.
A dodgy dentist comes back from the grave.
It takes a hard-hearted individual, I believe, to put his family through what they've been put through.
And a London crash for cash gang gets busted.
And he's now associating with vehicle 2 and the occupants.
In the fight against the growing problem of insurance fraud, an elite police squad has come together to form IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
Insurance fraud isn't a victimless crime. £50 of each premium you pay each year goes to the fraudsters. We have been set up to tackle that problem.
This dedicated team works tirelessly to bang up the crooks and conmen getting rich off other people's money.
Please get back!
It is our intention to create a climate of fear for the fraudster. There's every chance that an IFED detective may come knocking on their door to arrest them for committing an insurance fraud.
Police, don't move, stay where you are!
By April 2012, after only 6 months of operating, it had already busted 80 fraudsters, adding up to £12 million of fraud under investigation.
These people are criminals. These are nasty people. They don't go out to work on a Monday morning like most people do. Their work is submitting insurance fraud claims.
It's basically an investigation into organised motor vehicle fraud. There's 4 main targets today. They basically incept insurance policies on motor vehicles that they don't own. Then that vehicle is involved in an accident, either staged or entirely made up. And then they claim for recovery of the third-party vehicle, storage costs, hire cars and personal injury claims. There's 2 main addresses we've got Section 8 warrants for. Okay.
The group being targeted by IFED is thought to specialise in a specific type of motor insurance fraud, crash for cash. Crash for cash is a term given to collisions executed in order to make money from motor insurance policies. And it's big business. There are an estimated 30,000 crash for cash incidents per year on Britain's roads, valued at least £350 million. Adding an average of £44 to your motor insurance bill every year. It's time for IFED to move in on the suspects.
There's quite a large number of people involved in fraud, incepting insurance policies and being named as either third-party drivers, claiming hire car costs, storage costs and personal injury. But we've identified 4 main suspects who we're looking to arrest today.
IFED's first destination is a pair of heavily guarded neighbouring houses. The buildings are smothered in CCTV cameras. IFED hopes to search for evidence of fraud at the properties, but has no idea how many potential suspects will be standing in its way. There's no sign of life from the house on the right, but the team find the house on the left unlocked. Inside, they discover a suspect with his pockets full of cash, but no incriminating paperwork.
We just found some money, £1,000 in the pocket of one of the suspects. I'll just leave that with you.
What have been next for conspiracy to fraud? He's getting a bit playful that one there.
Do you want it? If you come then.
Where are your shoes?
So who nicked him, Barry? You?
On the stairs, yeah.
The other house has not been so easy to access, but IFED has found a small open window.
He's in.
Please. Open the door, please. Please. Good morning. Good morning. We've got a warrant to search this address.
Hello. Sea London Police. We're executing a search warrant. Do you want to get yourself up?
4 startled occupants are turfed out of bed.
Do you want to jump up out of bed and we'll come and speak to you downstairs? Okay. I'll explain exactly what's happening.
No, that is my uncle came back.
Right, all take a seat. Take a seat. Okay, we've got a warrant to search this address.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I'm just telling you what's happening. We're going to search the address. It's in relation to conspiracy to defraud insurance companies. Okay, motor vehicle fraud.
No, nobody.
I'm just telling you what we're searching. That's
right.
The warrant relates to motor vehicle fraud, okay? So we're going to search this address.
All right.
You understand? Right, first of all, you're under arrest for conspiracy to defraud, okay? You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, something which you later learn in court.
What fraud? I haven't done no
Motor vehicle fraud.
I haven't done no motor vehicle.
Okay, you can tell me in the interview, okay?
All right.
Yeah, should we just sit him out of the way for a time being? Yeah.
IFED makes 2 arrests, but the key suspect is nowhere to be seen. So they start the search for the hard evidence needed to get the convictions.
We're looking for items associated with motor insurance fraud, so computers, mobile phones, any documentation relating to insurance policies. We'll take that phone and charger. So this one will be bedroom 3.
The search has only just begun when there is a breakthrough in the hunt for the missing suspect.
Yes. No, this is it. Yeah.
Could this be their man?
Can we come in? I'll just explain to you what's going on. You're burning the house down.
Crash for cash gangs operate all over Britain. Most choose a set area or even a regular stretch of road on which to operate. Simply slamming on their brakes in front of a victim would attract suspicion, so the crash gangs have evolved a devious 2-car tactic. First, the gang chooses a victim. Then they move their 2 cars into position in front of the target. Gang car number 1 then slams on its brakes. Gang car 2 reacts by braking hard, resulting in a rear-end shunt from the victim. Gang car 1 then turns off at the next possible turning, pretending to be unaware of the crash. One crash gang chose northwest London as their hunting ground, frequently crashing for cash on London's North Circular. What the gang didn't count on was a dedicated unit from the Met Police filming their every move.
They were a gang based up in northwest London who were on a daily basis slamming on in front of vehicles so they can make claims through various accident management companies and put in personal injury claims.
The Met wanted the gang off the roads, so it set about gathering evidence. For a bird's eye view of the gang at work, DC Eastick called in the help of the Met Police helicopter.
We used the helicopter to try and film the gang causing these accidents because it's more graphic from the air when you see vehicles slamming on and the other vehicle driving off and the party of it, what we call the decoy vehicle. It also demonstrates quite clearly to the jury what is going on.
Dispatched at the last minute, the police helicopter just manages to capture the crash gang as it springs its trap. At the top of the screen, Gang Car 1 is about to be seen braking hard. Gang Car 2 reacts, forcing the victim in the white transit van to smash into it. Minutes later, the occupants of the 2 cars meet up. The crash footage captured by the helicopter was not very clear, DC Eastick and his team would need better evidence to get the gang convicted. Then, one fateful day in the summer of 2009, they filmed the gang having a very busy day on North London's roads. It's 12:40 on the 29th of July 2009. The police are tailing the gang. Gang car 1 and 2 are setting up their latest victim for a smash. This time, they're foiled by the quick reactions of the intended victim. 3 hours later, they come across the gang after a reckless crash on a motorway slip road. The innocent victim has accepted responsibility for the crash and hands over his details. The fraudsters, absorbed in fleecing their latest victim, are completely unaware of the hazard they created. Still, the Met had not captured indisputable evidence that these incidents were staged. They had to prove that these cars were working as a team, and that afternoon, their patience was to be rewarded. The two gang cars are observed filling up at a petrol station. Then, the gang members do something that seals the case for the police.
And he's now associating with vehicle 2 and the occupants.
The high five really was mission accomplished, because that demonstrates that they obviously had a mission for that day and they accomplished that mission, and that was to cause an accident. When this case went to court, the video evidence that we obtained was so compelling that they really had no choice but to plead guilty at the earliest opportunity, which resulted in one of them getting 8 months imprisonment and 2 of the others getting 6 months imprisonment.
Personally, I think they're outrageous. It's costing me and every other motor policy holder an extra £40 or £50. If you're involved in a crash, take pictures of all the individuals, take pictures of the damage to their vehicle, not only your vehicle but their vehicle. It's evidence later on that you can provide to your insurance company that might just protect your no claims bonus and prove that this was a fraud.
Most insurance companies employ specialist fraud investigators who can spot a suspicious claim from looking at just a few pieces of paperwork, meaning it's hard to elude them, even from beyond the grave. Welcome to Barnstable. This peaceful Devonshire town used to be home to father of 4, Emmanuel Paresis.
I think Emmanuel Paresis was viewed as a pillar of the community. As a dentist, you're held in high regard, obviously.
Earning a hefty £135,000 a year, Mr. Paresis should have lived a very comfortable life. But tragically, in 2009, during a trip to Jordan, he died in a car crash. His grieving wife received £51,000 in insurance payouts and was due to receive a further £1.8 million from his life insurance policies. But first, she had to wait. Insurers will always check a claim of this size and nature, so private investigator John Saunders was called in to investigate.
When someone dies overseas, insurance companies come to us asking for advice on documentation and so forth. And I think over the last 25 years I've worked in 74 countries I've been to investigate claims.
John started to look into the case and straight away found inconsistencies.
The story was that they'd spent August in Greece on holiday, and his wife came back with the children to the end of August, beginning of September, because they were starting school. And Emmanuel apparently had then taken his mother from Greece to see a heart specialist in Jordan, in Amman. It seems strange that he wanted to go all the way to Amman to see a heart specialist, when I'm sure there are very good heart specialists in Athens.
After a meeting with Mrs. Paresis, John's suspicions were raised even further.
When I interviewed the wife, she appeared to be upset, a few tears, but I didn't believe her. She didn't have sufficient knowledge. Had her husband died as claimed, I'd have expected her to have more information about where he was buried, who arranged the burial, who he was with at the time, which hospital he died in. But it was clear to me she wouldn't prepare herself for such questions and didn't know the answers, yet they were meant to be very close.
John had a hunch, but no evidence, so he jetted off to Greece to check out the paperwork. But everything looked above board. So he moved on to the scene of the crash, Jordan, where he made some important discoveries.
The death registration certificate was a fake document. There was no record at the cemetery of any burial. And then my visit to the Greek embassy there, where it appeared they'd been told all about the death by, I think it was Costas, a lawyer. When we looked at the embassy, looked at the documents and found that the lawyer had a Hotmail address. I thought it was rather unusual for a law firm to have a Hotmail address. And it was pretty clear to me that the lawyer didn't exist. It was Emmanuel Parisas taking on the role of the lawyer. So by that time, we had more than sufficient evidence to show that he had not died.
John knew Mr. Parisas was alive, but had no idea where he was hiding. So he flew back to England and handed his evidence to the police. The job of finding the deceptive dentist was given to DI Mike West of the Devon and Cornwall Police.
I knew that it was going to be complex, and I knew that the inquiry needed to be focused. Parisas had stayed in Greece, we believe, waiting for the £1.8 million to roll in. But when that didn't happen, and certainly didn't happen anytime soon, he had to do something. He had a wife and 4 children in the UK to support.
A major breakthrough in the case occurred around 9 months after the fake death, when they received a tip-off that Parisas had resurfaced in Scotland, immediately alerting DI Mike West.
We identified the fact that Parisas was living under the name of Neil McLaren, and he was operating as a dentist within a surgery in Peterhead, within the Grampian area of Scotland.
After almost a year-long manhunt, the trail had come to an end. DI Mike West closed in on the resurrected dentist.
Parisas was arrested in the company of other family members. He certainly showed some surprise when we arrived at his doorstep. We identified a fraud kit which enabled him to fake his identity. It included official-looking stamps, documentation from various universities and seats of learning. He was obviously prepared for this and living a lie for a significant period of time.
For 3 months, Mr. and Mrs. Parisas had left their children thinking they had lost their dad.
It takes a hard-hearted individual, I believe, to put his family through what they've been put through, and the psychological damage can't be underestimated.
For her part, Mrs. Parisas was sentenced to 16 weeks. Mr. Parisas was jailed for 5 years on fraud charges and struck off the General Dental Council's register. His sentence was later reduced to 3 years. The Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, IFED, is executing a raid at the first of 3 addresses. It suspects some occupants are linked to a crash for cash ring. The officers have already made 2 arrests. They've been bagging evidence at the raid properties for just under an hour and are trying to track down their outstanding suspect.
Just something maybe of interest, various mobile phones are ringing, but one of them potentially has the name of the outstanding suspect coming up.
Has it?
Yeah. There is one outstanding, isn't there?
Yeah, does it keep coming up? It's the number,
Yeah, I believe so. It's a variation of the name.
Good morning, it's Sean Corrigan. How you doing? I've just got 3 body checks, please, if you want the details.
The 3 men being held downstairs are not believed to be fraudsters, but stored in one of their mobile phones is the number of the missing suspect.
Are these your phones? Yeah, I think the guy who we're trying to arrest is ringing them. Can you get his number up?
IFED gets access to the suspect's number.
It's PC Corrigan from police station, you're right. The sooner we speak to you, the better. How long do you reckon you'll be? About half an hour. Can you make it any sooner? You'll try, okay.
Upstairs, the evidence is mounting.
Claimant solicitors and a certificate of motor insurance. Sorry to hear that you've been involved in a road traffic accident and have sustained injuries. Okay, this is exactly what we've been looking for. You know, you'd have expected someone involved in this kind of activity to keep a stash of documentation somewhere. It looks like we may have found it.
The outstanding suspect has predictably not shown up. With the evidence in the bag, the team follows a lead to a third property.
You're a guy in the back, mate, yeah? I'm from the City London Police. I'll just come in, I'll just speak to you about what we're doing. Basically, we've got a warrant for this address, okay? Let me come in and I'll explain to you, all right?
Something burning.
Are you all right? You're burning the house down? Can we come in? I'll just explain to you what's going on. Yeah? It's all right.
Is it off? Yeah, I think everything's sorted.
DCI Dave Wood is very interested in the burnt paper in the kitchen and toilet.
Well, it appeared from the time that it took us to travel from the previous search warrant addresses to here, which is a short journey, we only took about 7 or 8 minutes. In that time, I'm guessing communication has been passed into this premises where the lady who's opened the door to us eventually has burnt some evidence.
Despite the smokescreen, the IFED officers still find an armful of evidence and decide to arrest the suspect they came for.
Okay, you didn't have to say anything but mind your defence if you don't mention any questions something you later on in court, and if you do say maybe giving it evidence. Do you understand? Yeah. Okay.
The missing suspect has still not been arrested. All other suspects are currently on bail, and if convicted of insurance fraud, could face up to 10 years in prison. Insurance fraud in the UK is reaching epidemic levels, and it's costing us billions of pounds a year. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injury claims, even fake deaths. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year, it's adding up to £50 to your insurance bill. Insurers are fighting back, armed with covert surveillance systems.
How they think they can get away with it, I don't know, when the evidence from the camera is so clear.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques.
This is connected to a bank account and a second mobile phone number.
And a newly formed dedicated police unit.
Police, get back!
They're catching the criminals red-handed. All those con men, scammers, cheats on the fiddle, now they're caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Today, a fire investigation team searches for clues amongst the ashes.
Mr. Ross's factory was totally destroyed.
The Met Police execute a raid on a small business. And insurance fraud enters the art world.
25% of my cases will have some insurance fraud element to it.
It's just after 9 p.m. on the 19th of August 2009. A massive fire has engulfed a carpet warehouse at the Knowsley Industrial Park, Liverpool.
Fire service. Oh, hi, listen, I'm just working late. My warehouse is on fire, and all outside's on fire.
Well, on the night the call came in, it was about 9:05 in the evening. A fire was reported by a treble 9 call.
It's literally... sorry. Are you okay?
Initially, the Merseyside Fire Department dispatched 2 fire engines to deal with the blaze. On arrival, Fire Officer Miles Platt knew they would need more help.
I got called to the incident as it was developing. I quickly assessed the scene. I realised that this was a significant blaze. It was a warm summer's evening, there was a strong wind blowing, and this intense fire was spread over a large geographical area, And very quickly I realised that we'd need to get a lot of assets down there on the ground to actually deal with this incident and ultimately extinguish it.
The Merseyside Fire Department arrives to find warehouse owner Elliot Ross watching his business go up in flames.
There was a wide impact, so this significant blaze, there was real fear of that spreading to the adjacent properties, and the amount of water and resources that we got over a fairly long period of time actually to contain that blaze.
The fire was so intense, 6 other businesses on the estate had their buildings damaged by the blaze. It took 12 fire engines to tame the flames.
You've actually got pallets and machinery that's on fire. You've got vehicles in another geographical location which are on fire. We had to shut down roads to access water supplies, to make the public safe.
The destruction to the carpet warehouse was so extensive, business owner Elliot Ross would need to file an insurance claim of £200,000 to cover the damage. The Merseyside Fire Department knew that the fire had started in 3 places. This is very unlikely to occur without human intervention. Someone had deliberately tried to destroy Mr. Elliot's warehouse.
It's a massive operation, and this was a large protracted incident as a result of somebody's setting fire deliberately.
It had become an arson investigation. The case was handed to a brand new team named Flare. Set up in June 2009, Flare is a joint police and fire brigade unit tasked with investigating cases of commercial arson. The team investigating this arson was headed up by Fire Marshal Mark Schuler and DC Karen Nixon.
Mark and I attended the fire the following morning. There was still a lot of fire appliances there tending the fire. There was a huge damage. A number of businesses were affected. One was partly destroyed. Mr. Ross's factory was totally destroyed. So it was a scene of devastation, really.
The Flare unit discovered the fire had been started by 3 disposable barbecues. These barbecues became the starting point for their investigation.
There were 2 of those placed in the pallet yard, which was the adjoining business, and then there was 1 left on the windowsill of Mr. Ross's warehouse.
2 of the barbecues had been destroyed by the fire, but the one left on the windowsill was only half burnt. This barbecue became crucial to the investigation.
Now that barbecue had been stacked with a number of items which were extremely significant and of great value to our investigation, and they included a whole toilet roll, a couple of newspapers, and a piece of cardboard which subsequently was found to be the wrapping of a pair of gloves. We were able to take those very small fragments and be able to backtrack them and source where they'd come from.
The half-burnt toilet roll from the barbecue was sent to a forensic team. Its composition was compared against 44 other types of toilet roll. The results were very interesting. The burnt toilet paper exactly matched rolls stored at the warehouse.
The toilet roll that was recovered in the barbecue at the seat of fire was identical to the toilet rolls that Mr. Elliot Ross had in his premises, and nobody else had those, so it was a very strong link.
This revealed that the fire was started by someone who had access to the warehouse. Warehouse owner Elliot Ross was now on the shortlist of suspects. To narrow the list, Flare turned its attention to another item in the half-burnt barbecue.
Amongst the disposable barbecue at that location, there was a small fragment of cardboard. We found out that that was actually part of a packaging for a protective glove.
The card had come from a box of latex gloves. Crucially, the piece of card had a web address on it, that of the manufacturer. The Flare unit contacted the glove makers.
They were able to tell us that the glove packaging was theirs and that they made them for a well-known large supermarket chain. Significantly for us, that particular packaging had only been available from May of that year, so there was only 43 sales of those gloves in the Merseyside area. But it actually gave us 1 purchase of gloves. That was the night before the arson attack, and it was actually at a large supermarket which was near to where Mr. Ross lived.
From just fragments of evidence, the Flare unit had found a prime suspect. Warehouse owner Elliot Ross. But they would need much more conclusive evidence to prove their suspicions. Technology was to provide the next breakthrough. The Flare unit was granted access to information about Mr. Ross's mobile phone. Specifically, they had a map where the phone was each time it had been used.
We were able to put Mr. Ross within 900 metres of that supermarket on that evening. And then subsequently to that, we got further information which enabled us to actually put him outside and then inside that supermarket at the time of the purchase.
The flare unit knew it was close and needed one last piece of evidence. So they went back to the supermarket to ask for a detailed list of purchases from the night before the fire. From that, the flare unit discovered that Mr. Ross had made purchases in the store. Very incriminating purchases. A bottle of flammable liquid. Some extra long matches. And most importantly, the box of latex gloves whose packaging was found stuffed in the half-burnt barbecue. The flare unit had got its man. At Liverpool Crown Court, Elliot Ross pleaded not guilty. But after a 4-week trial, the jury reached their verdict. He was sentenced to 5.5 years in prison.
Maybe it wasn't his intention to cause so much damage, but he didn't know the risk that he was going to place all those firefighters that had to tackle those 2 seats of fire simultaneously. He didn't think about that, did he?
Yes, I do think Elliot Ross understood the seriousness of his actions. I believe that he planned the fire carefully and that he set it with a view to causing considerable damage in his property so that he could make a fraudulent claim and defraud the insurance company. And I do believe he knew what he was doing when he did it.
The Met Police move in on a suspected fraud gang. And a bus company faces a whiplash claim.
It looks as though the UK public have got the weakest necks in Europe.
If you were involved in a road traffic accident, you might be approached by an accident management company. An honest accident management company will help to process your insurance forms, provide a hire car whilst yours is being fixed, and help with any claims for personal injury you may have suffered. However, the last 10 years have seen a dramatic rise in fraudulent accident management companies. Not just helping, but encouraging people to make fraudulent claims. The rise of these rogue businesses isn't being left unchecked. This is the home of the Met Traffic Unit. Set up in 2009, this specialist department is committed to reducing the number of traffic-related deaths, injuries and crimes on London's roads.
My team will use every method available in order to catch them. Overt tactics, covert tactics, the helicopter, any tactic that we can think of, we will use to catch these people.
One of their missions is to eradicate fraudulent accident management companies. Today, the traffic unit is executing a multiple location raid on an accident management company that's believed to be involved in fraudulent activity.
We're hoping to execute a search warrant and arrest a director of an accident management company that we believe, or certainly suspect, has been involved in arranging induced collisions. And of course, part of today will be to obtain the evidence to support our suspicions. We've certainly been investigating them for some 8 to 9 months now. So we're quite happy that they're involved in criminality.
The small business being raided is suspected to be orchestrating induced collisions, also known as crash for cash. Crash for cash is a term given to collisions executed in order to make money from motor insurance policies. And it's big business. There are an estimated 30,000 crash for cash incidents per year on Britain's roads, valued at least £350 million, adding an average of £44 to your motor insurance bill every year. Also from the Met Traffic Unit is DC E-Stick.
I'll have one uniform with me going in. Yeah. When the bill works. Mr. Please, can you open up, please?
There's no sign of the suspect. If he's in, he's not opening the door.
I don't think there's anyone in. We've got a warrant, so we're going to have a look inside it. We're going to get the enforcer round to try and do the door, because we've got 2 locks on. That lock's on and that lock's on, so I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle for us to open it now.
A local unit is called to batter the door down.
You want to hand it to this chap here to do the biz first? Right, well done, mate. It's all clear, there isn't everybody in?
We've come to the address. The man we were looking for is not present, but we've forced entry because we've got a search warrant, and we're just in the process of searching the premises for any evidence relating to what we're investigating.
The traffic unit starts the search for evidence of fraud.
We're really looking for documentary evidence. We're looking for anything in relation to claims. Surveillance documents and mobile phones.
Very soon, the team accumulates what they came for.
We found quite a lot of documents, a lot of banking documents, and a lot of documents in relation to accidents, even accidents that the actual person's had, who actually owns a flat or lives in the flat. And we found a lot of SIM cards in there as well. So I'm interested to know what that's regarding. Perhaps he's selling them on, or perhaps that's part of a larger conspiracy.
DI Hindmarsh leaves the raid location. He heads off to oversee the search of the HQ of the accident claims company. The Met Traffic Unit continues its search for evidence.
We've got 2 vehicles that we believe have been used in this particular crime. We're going to seize them.
Your car insurance doesn't just cover the cost of vehicle repair. It will also pay your medical bills if you suffer an injury whilst driving. The most common injury sustained in a motor vehicle incident is whiplash.
The most common form of whiplash injury that I see in my surgery results from a rear shunt car accident, where the head gets forcibly thrown backwards and then forwards. That causes the muscles and the ligaments about the neck and the shoulder to stretch more than normal, and that causes pain and inflammation.
Despite improvements in car safety features, in the UK, whiplash claims are at an all-time high.
Around about 76% of all bodily injury claims that we receive are for whiplash claims.
Insurers are paying out nearly £2 billion a year to the claimants. The cost to the NHS of treating whiplash has been estimated at £8 million a year.
It looks as though the UK public have got the weakest necks in Europe.
It's the 7th of February 2008, and the Route 9 bus is navigating the busy roads of Luton. Partway through its journey, it's obstructed by a badly parked car. The driver makes a mistake.
He was confronted by a Golf which was parked at a very strange, awkward angle, so he had to slow right down and wait for approaching traffic to go by before he could try and manoeuvre around it. Unfortunately, as he manoeuvred round it, he misjudged the situation and he caught the car as he went by.
The owner of the car, Shazma Dad, takes the details of the Arriva bus and its driver.
Our driver, after the incident, quite rightly accepted that the accident was his fault and filled in the report form. Within 7 days of that incident, a solicitor's letter arrived at Arriva. That letter was claiming not only for the damage to the vehicle, but it was also claiming for personal injury.
Miss Dad reported that the incident had left her with whiplash and difficulty in sleeping. She was now seeking financial compensation from the bus company. As a matter of course, the claims handler compared Miss Dad's account of events against the bus driver's report. The bus driver's report stated that no one was in the car at the time of the incident. Possibly something that could be resolved by one of the 9 cameras on the Arriva bus. And the rear-view camera revealed that Miss Dad was not in her car at the moment it was struck, confirming the bus driver's report. So where was she?
The rear view camera showed our driver getting out of his bus, walking back to the car, looking round, going into the nearby shop, walking back out with Miss Dad.
So Miss Dad was not in her car at the time of the accident. In fact, she only learnt of the scrape after she'd been found by the bus driver in a nearby shop. Amazingly, Miss Dad still had the nerve to claim for whiplash. On being confronted with the CCTV evidence, Miss Dad withdrew her claim and paid costs and damages to the bus company. But that wasn't the end of it for her.
We were not prepared to let it rest there. We want to send out a clear message to people that they should not try and defraud a reaver. So we passed the papers to the Bedfordshire Police, and they decided to prosecute her for fraud.
Shazma Dad pleaded guilty and was given a conditional discharge.
I guess that bus companies are regarded by some people as an easy target, but what I should make clear to them is that bus companies are not easy targets, and in fact we are at the forefront of the fight against fraud.
Insurance fraud isn't all about car crashes and phony neck injuries. Sometimes it targets the finer things in life. This is the headquarters of the Art Loss Register, a specialist team based in central London. When a piece of artwork is lost or stolen anywhere in the world, the Art Loss Register team make it their mission to track it down and get it back. They are led by New York lawyer Chris Marinello.
We are everywhere in every art market throughout the world, but we're really a small team of about 15 to 20 people.
Chris and his crack team of investigators will do whatever it takes to retrieve stolen art.
I coordinate with law enforcement, other lawyers, theft victims, sometimes setting up sting operations in conjunction with law enforcement. Basically, I'm the person who recovers the artwork.
Sometimes the Art Loss Register helps in the fight against fraud.
It used to be that 98% of my cases were simple stolen art cases that were in need of art recovery services. But now, maybe 25% will have some insurance fraud element to it.
One piece of art that came to its attention was this 16th century drawing, Portrait of a Man Wearing a Ruff by Ottavio Leoni.
Leoni is not as well known as Picasso or Michelangelo, but his work is very detailed and very popular. He comes from a school of Italian Renaissance artists that were doing a lot of drawings in preparation for more major works.
In 1993, the portrait was stolen from an art dealer's home. After an initial investigation, the Leoni was nowhere to be found. The art dealer received a £10,000 payout from her insurance company, and the details of the stolen art went on the books of the Art Loss Register.
Art is easy to steal, it's transportable, you can hide it easily.
19 years after its disappearance, the portrait reappeared. It was now on the books of London auction house Sotheby's. Sotheby's were unaware that the portrait was stolen, but the Art Loss Register were 100% aware.
Back in January of 2012, we spotted this piece when we were doing routine checking for Sotheby's. And this item matched perfectly with one that had been reported stolen to us in 1993. We contacted the auction house, told them of the match. They pulled the item from the sale, allowing us to sort the matter out.
Chris had contact details for the person selling the portrait, but no idea how they had come by the piece or what kind of person they were. He had to tread carefully. The person who had put the item up for sale could easily be involved in some seriously nasty crimes.
Stolen art trades in the underworld at a rate of maybe 5 or 10% of the true value of the artwork. And they also barter amongst themselves for drugs and for weapons. And we've seen some hard evidence of a connection to international terrorism and the antiquities trade.
Despite the unknown background of the seller, Chris decided to contact them directly. It transpired that the seller wasn't involved in underworld activity, but Chris was surprised at their response to his inquiry.
I said, look, you're selling a stolen work of art. And she said, oh, no, I'm not doing that at all. It was stolen from me. And I said, oh, that's interesting. So you're our theft victim.
The woman was both the current seller and the victim of the 1993 theft. This was a major surprise to Chris. He was determined to get to the bottom of where the painting had been for the last 19 years, so he questioned the woman further.
I said, well, could you tell me the circumstances of how you recovered it? She said, oh, yes, my sister was shopping, found the piece, and then she remembered that it was mine, and she bought it, and then I bought it from her.
Having received £10,000 from her insurance company for the loss of the portrait 19 years earlier, the woman could potentially be facing a fraud charge. However, with no proof that it was anything more sinister than a coincidence, Chris had to believe her. Advised by the original insurer, Chris gave the woman two options to avoid criminal proceedings.
Keep the painting and reimburse your insurance company, or release your claim to the piece altogether.
Despite escaping a criminal prosecution, the seller had a wish of her own.
Then she called me and said, do I have to give you the frame? She goes, I paid a lot of money for that frame. And I said, you're just getting by without being charged with insurance fraud, and you're asking me to keep the frame. She goes, you're probably right. Okay, you can have the frame.
With the painting recovered and held safely by the Art Loss Register, Chris entered it into an auction at Bonham's.
The piece has lost value since the insurance company paid out, which happens. And it's possible that this piece could sell for anywhere between £5,000 and £8,000. As crazy as some of the scenarios that I have seen, that would not surprise me if she showed up and bid on this thing again.
Mr. Police, can you open up, please?
Today, officers from the Met Police Traffic Unit are raiding an accident management company suspected of fraud. They've completed a search for evidence at a suspect's flat. DI Hindmarsh has driven to a second location to continue the operation.
I'm outside the accident management company now.
At the premises, DI Hindmarsh is joined by a small team of Met Police officers. They have a member of staff from the company with them. He is under arrest.
So are they scanned onto the computer? Yeah, so really then, most of what is in there is scanned on and it's on the computer, yeah? Okay.
The search begins. Nearly everything in the office is placed in evidence bags. Of great interest to the traffic unit is a large quantity of cash found in one of the filing cabinets.
Basically, we're going to end up seizing the majority of this office.
DI Hindmarsh leaves the officers to continue their search as he's needed back at the location of the raided flat.
We're just on our way back to the address of the gentleman who wasn't in, because we've got two vehicles that we believe have been used in this particular crime, and as such, we're going to seize them.
As a result of the investigation into the accident claims company, 7 people have been arrested and charged with conspiracy to defraud. If found guilty, they could each face lengthy jail terms.
We're really, really pleased with the results. This has been about 8 or 9 months of work to get to the arrest phase. So to get the result that we have, yes, we're really, really pleased. But the work continues.
Insurance fraud in the UK is reaching epidemic levels, and it's costing us billions of pounds every year. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injury claims, even fake deaths. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year, it's adding up to £50 to your insurance bill. Insurers are fighting back, armed with covert surveillance systems.
The CCTV cameras are the best tool we've got in our fight against fraud.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques.
This is connected to a bank account and a second mobile phone number.
And a newly formed dedicated police unit.
Police, get back!
They're catching the criminals red-handed. All those con men, scammers, cheats on the fiddle, now they're caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Today, a specialist police fraud unit is on the hunt for fake pet insurance claims. A crash for cash gang pick a big victim.
And the infectious brake, yeah, got it.
And an insurer is taken for a ride.
This is a guy who claims that he'll never be able to work again and is in pretty well constant pain.
All of these collisions are crash for cash attempts. Crash for cash is a term given to collisions executed in order to make money from motor insurance policies. And it's rife. A recent poll found that 5% of drivers under the age of 35 have staged an accident in order to make a fraudulent insurance claim. But crash for cash is not an opportunistic crime. It's organised, often by gangs. Simply slamming on the brakes in front of a victim would attract suspicion, so the crash gangs have evolved a devious two-car tactic. First, the gang choose a victim. Then they move their two cars into position in front of the target. Gang car number 1 then slams on its brakes. Gang car 2 reacts by braking hard, resulting in a rear-end shunt from the victim. Gang car 1 then turns off at the next possible turning, pretending to be unaware of the crash. The march of the crash for cash gangs isn't going unchecked. A specialist unit from the Metropolitan Police is determined to remove these fraudsters from our roads.
Any tactic that we can think of, we will use to catch these people.
One of the unit's most powerful tools is video surveillance.
Both vehicles now in the offside lane of 2.
It's September 2007. A crash for cash gang is being filmed on the A41. The gang is setting up a grocery van for a smash.
Yes, it's the offside lane towards the Mike 25. And
the gang didn't randomly pick the grocery van as a victim. They chose it because it's a fleet vehicle.
The reason for choosing a fleet vehicle is that they're insured, and that's what they're interested in. They're interested in whoever hits them is insured, so they can maximise their claim and not be worried about being run into by a non-insured driver.
The gang move in on the innocent van driver. Car number 1 is about to slam on its brakes, forcing car 2 to react.
Yes, it's the offside lane towards the Mike 25. And the infectious brake, yeah, got it. Yeah.
Car 1, the decoy, has driven off, leaving car 2 to make the claim against the innocent grocer.
Yeah, the lorry's now just gone into the back of the Jaguar.
And have obtained.
We have obtained.
We started looking at this organised criminal gang.
Asian male 1 now out of the vehicle, and the subject.
This smash was one of 3 claims the gang made, totalling £55,000. Thanks to the video evidence, they didn't keep a penny.
All 6 were convicted. The main ringleader receiving some 8 months imprisonment, and the remaining 5 2-year suspended sentences.
These fraudsters were off the roads, but the Met Traffic Unit is fighting a constant battle against crash for cash gangs. In the autumn of 2009, the unit discovered another crash gang, and once again a fleet vehicle was the target.
It involved three lads who decided to basically create a slam-on in front of a vehicle.
The blue car ahead is planning to execute a crash for cash manoeuvre. They're not using a decoy car and simply plan to surprise the driver of the fleet vehicle. The van driver falls into their trap.
The reason they stated for them to do an emergency stop was because there was a bus stop, and there was a bus at the bus stop, and there was a woman stepping off the bus onto the road, and that was the reason why they stopped.
But the fraudsters are out of luck, as the camera fitted to the fleet vehicle reveals the truth of the matter.
As you see on the footage, there is a bus stop, but there is no bus, and there certainly isn't a woman stepping onto the road. When I saw the evidence, I thought it was very audacious, and I was very surprised that someone could be so blatant just to slam on for no apparent reason in the middle of a busy junction on a busy road, with no regard whatsoever to the chaos that causes.
At Croydon Crown Court, all 3 occupants of the car were found guilty of fraud by false representation, and each sentenced to 3 months' imprisonment. A satisfactory outcome for the owners of the fleet vehicle, online grocer Ocado.
Specifically targeting our drivers is very distressing for them. It feels a bit like being mugged. It also affects their professional pride in the job that they do. Where we believe there's a fraudulent crash, we will pursue it right through the court system. There's no debate about that at all. We'll take it all the way.
This sort of crime is probably a growing trend in this country now. If people go to prison, they might think twice about doing it.
Brake, 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 yeah.
There is absolutely the potential that a staged fraudulent accident can kill someone. There's no doubt about that. It's an accident, and it has all the same dangers as any other road accident.
A police unit raids the home of a suspected insurance fraudster.
Yeah, okay.
A corner shop in Barnsley gets torched.
She lied to her family, she's lied to her friends, and she lied to the police about what happened.
And a private investigator closes in on a shamed claimer.
During the footage, it clearly shows him going up 40, 50 feet high in order to get on a ride.
In the fight against the growing problem of insurance fraud, an elite police squad have come together to form IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
Insurance fraudsters are hitting us in our pockets. That's not right. IFED have been set up to combat that problem, and we will do so by making arrests all over the country.
This dedicated team works tirelessly to bang up the crooks and con men getting rich off other people's money.
If you commit insurance fraud, there's every chance that IFED are going to come knocking on your door and bring you to justice.
Police, don't move, stay where you are!
By April 2012, after only 6 months of operating, they had already busted 80 fraudsters, adding up to £12 million of fraud under investigation.
Insurance fraud is seen at the moment as an easy touch. IFED are setting out to stop that and make these organised crime groups think again.
IFED investigates every type of insurance fraud: personal injury, buildings, holiday, even pet insurance fraud. Fraudulent pet insurance claims rose from £420,000 in 2009 to £1.92 million in 2011, a nearly 5-fold increase over 2 years. Today, IFED is planning a raid on a suspect known to have a long track record of claiming against multiple insurance policies.
I've in fact dealt with her earlier this year about a number of cases, in fact 8 cases in total. This time when I arrest her, I'm going to have to be interviewing her about another 20 cases.
As well as making numerous home contents claims, she has submitted a large number of pet insurance claims with different insurers.
I'm just getting the paperwork together, and we're going to have to move quite quickly on this and arrest her sooner rather than later, because the claims keep on coming in.
On the raid, the IFED team will be keen to establish whether any of the supposedly deceased dogs are still alive.
We've got information to suggest there is one Chihuahua which is alive, but we think there might be other dogs there as well. We're also going to be looking for computers and telephones, and you know, for evidence of her applying for the insurance policies. It's hard to separate, you know, fact from fiction. She comes up with a whole lot of stories, so we're going to have to be careful with the way we deal with her.
The team members arrive outside the suspect's house. Not knowing what to expect, they leave nothing to chance and put on protective equipment.
Hello, Alex Cooley. Yeah, we met in January, didn't we? Do you want to take a seat? No, okay. Take a seat and I'll explain. I'm going to arrest you for a whole number of fake insurance claims.
With access to the property gained, T.I. Cooley explains to the suspects what they're looking for.
We need to look for evidence, basically to confirm what dogs you have, yeah, and to look for documentation to the insurance policies, okay? So, how many Chihuahuas? I saw one standing up.
Staffy type pit bull, so just go easy. He looks like he's ready to jump.
Yeah, okay. Give the dog legs.
To shut that door, I don't intend to search that.
We do need to get her to the police station as soon as practical. We're going to have a look and we're going to search the house for evidence relating to the insurance fraud.
Before taking the suspect into custody, the IFED team ask her to direct them to any documents relating to insurance.
Is there anything here that you can help us with to quicken our search? Any paperwork relating to those insurance claims?
What, the claims that's gone on already, or...?
Anything to do with insurance? Any claims?
I had no claims of these. Is that one?
Thank you. Can you just place it on there for us?
Sorry, yeah.
Anything like that?
The suspect is compliant. She shows the team where to find the paperwork it has come for.
If you just leave that there, we'll make deals, we won't take you with us.
Is there anything upstairs in your bedroom?
The suspect is taken into custody for further questioning, leaving IFED to search the whole house for evidence of multiple fraudulent pet insurance claims. IFED's search for evidence keeps running into little interruptions. Personal injury insurance exists to help us when, due to an accident, we are unable to work or need money for extra care. And like motor insurance, it's being abused by dishonest claimants. The number of personal injury claims received by insurers leapt 72% between 2002 and 2010, a figure that is set to rise. In 2007, this man was injured at work.
The claimant had been operating a burger van. He was mopping up at the end of the day, and somebody had collided with the rear of it, as a result of which he'd sustained damage to both knees.
Due to his knee injuries, the burger van owner sought compensation. Stating that he was no longer able to work, he claimed for £425,000 in lost future earnings. On top of that, he made a further claim for adaptations to his property.
Shortly after the firm was instructed, we received a request for an interim payment to enable this guy to adapt his house to fit a through lift, a downstairs bathroom and a downstairs toilet, suggesting a very high level of disability indeed.
This was an unforeseen expense for the insurer, but before they paid out on any adaptations to the burger van owner's house, some information about the claimant was discovered.
Some medical evidence, though, emerged which suggested that he had convictions for fraud and dishonesty, as a result of which they became particularly interested in the possibility that this claim might be one that they should be looking at very hard.
The insurer was suspicious of the claimant. They decided to call in the help of a private investigator.
Insurers will sometimes commission surveillance when they believe that the injury which is being claimed does not support the level of damages which is beginning to emerge, and that was certainly the case here.
The nature of his work means the investigator needs to remain anonymous.
We specialise in surveillance as a company, and as a percentage, 75% of the surveillance we carry out is insurance fraud or insurance-related surveillance.
Due to an anonymous tip-off, the private investigator was instructed to film the claimant for a whole Sunday.
The solicitor was very keen for us to place the claimant under surveillance that particular weekend, so it was one Friday evening that I received a call on my mobile from the solicitor, and we dispatched a surveillance team. You know, it's very short notice for us to get the surveillance team and unit together and deployed out to the claimant's home address. He did come out of the house in the morning, seemed to be loading up and sorting out his car. Well, what unfolded was incredible, really.
The claimant was on a day trip to an amusement park. After buying himself a ticket, the private investigator entered the park and set about surveying the claimant.
We filmed him as and when it was possible. At the theme park, he was going on rides, and he did have a walking stick with him, but it didn't seem as though he was using it in a weight-bearing capacity.
The video evidence showed a man capable of walking without the aid of a stick and comfortably handling a fairground mallet.
Later on during the day, you know the strongman hammer, you bang it with a mallet and up it goes and you're trying to hit the bell. He was filmed using one of those. And this is a guy who claims that he'll never be able to work again. He's totally restricted with his mobility and is in pretty well constant pain.
That day, his claim to need a stair lift and downstairs bathroom was also to be dispelled.
It's interesting that he claimed that he needed a ground floor bathroom and a stair lift. However, during the footage, it clearly shows him going up 40, 50 feet high in order to get on a ride.
The surveillance op filmed the claimant managing a 4-story ascent before shooting down an amusement ride.
At the end of the day, the camera does not lie, and you can't argue the case. The video footage clearly shows an individual who is exaggerating his symptoms. From the time he left his home address to going back after he'd been to the theme park, he was out for approximately 10 hours of the day.
In the face of such overwhelming evidence, the burger van owner had no choice but to accept a vastly reduced payout.
The result of all this was that a claim which was originally put at £800,000 settled for a very small fraction of that indeed. In addition to getting his small percentage of what he claimed, there was also a costs order against him. This is another case where I'd be very surprised if the claimant came out any better off than he went in.
I would say the general public would think, hang on a minute, I pay huge premiums for my motor insurance, for my household insurance, and they seem to be going up every single year, way above the rate of inflation. And the reason they're going up is because we have become a claim culture. This person's really exaggerating and they're defrauding the system. And as a result of these individuals, our claims are going through the roof.
Most business premises in the UK are insured against property damage. A sensible measure when you consider that in the UK in 2009, large-scale fire damage costs totalled £865 million. Shockingly, 40% of all fires at commercial premises are subsequently found to have been arson. Meet Sukhjit Kaur. She and her husband used to own D&S Super Save, a corner shop in Barnsley, South Yorkshire. D&S Super Save had been serving the needs of East Barnsley until a terrible event destroyed the family business.
It was 3:30 in the morning, the 9th of March 2010, when the police received a call from Mrs. Carr. Mrs. Carr was in a very hysterical state. And she was at a neighbour's address at the time. The neighbour took over the call and the information was passed through the neighbour to the effect that 3 masked men had gone into Mrs. Carr's home address, held them knife point, her and her husband and a small child. For a number of hours they'd been held hostage at knife point, and just prior to leaving the address, the masked men set fire to the premises.
Her husband was also asked about the masked gang.
Mr. Singh maintained the same story, that 3 masked men had gone into the house, held them at knife point, and set fire to the premises.
Sukhjit and her husband claimed to have been subjected to a frightening attack, lost their livelihood, and nearly killed in their own home. Their neighbour, Jean Kay, was also affected by the fire.
The neighbour was very shook up. It was 3:30 in the morning. She was asleep in bed. She was awoken by the sound of an explosion, which was probably from aerosols within the store. When she woke, the house was smoke-filled. She did suffer from smoke inhalation, and she had to be taken to hospital for treatment. Had she not woke up, it could have been much, much more serious.
Having survived the ordeal, Mrs. Kaur informed her insurer of the event, submitting a claim for £166,000. With this payout, Sukhjit and her husband could rebuild their business. Their insurer began to process their claim, but soon hit a snag.
We discovered that she'd taken the policy out one day before the fire.
This coincidence raised the suspicion of the insurer, so they looked into the financial state of the couple. It didn't look good.
Mrs. Kaur told our loss adjuster that the business had been in financial difficulty for some years. They used to run a post office which went, and for the last 6-7 years they'd had great difficulty in surviving, and she'd borrowed lots of money from a local money lender. She didn't admit to the loss adjuster or to us exactly how much she owed, but we know, having done the background checks in terms of financial status, and this is in the public domain, that she owed up to, or she had CCJs to the value of £150,000.
With a business deeply in debt and a potential insurance payout of £166,000, the insurer had good reason to suspect Sukhjit and her husband were involved in the arson. So South Yorkshire Police brought her in for questioning.
When we first spoke to Mrs. Kaur, she broke down and told us that she was in a lot of debt and that she was involved. That led to her arrest, and she was formally interviewed at the police station. And it was during that interview that she confessed to being involved in setting the fire for the purpose of making an insurance claim.
Although she confessed to the crime, Sukhjit insisted the plan hadn't been her idea.
She owed a lot of money to the loan shark, and he wanted his money back. So what he suggested to her, put in a large insurance fraud. He would organise people to come into the shop at the dead of night and actually set the fire.
At Sheffield Crown Court, Sukhjit Kaur was sentenced to 5 years for conspiracy to defraud, later reduced to 4 years on appeal. For his part in the deception, her husband was sentenced to 3 years.
She had, of her own accord, managed to get herself into a lot of debt. She couldn't manage that debt. She could see no way out of that debt. She lied to her family, she's lied to her friends, and she lied to the police about what happened.
When we found out they'd been given custodial sentences, for us at Allianz, it was a very pleasing outcome. It sends a message out that insurance fraud is no longer a victimless crime. There are victims, and you won't get away with it.
Today, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, IFED, has raided the property of a woman suspected of multiple attempts of pet insurance fraud. She's been taken into custody, leaving the team to search her property for evidence. Her boyfriend has just arrived outside.
Oh, the boyfriend's here, right, okay. She's just with a female officer because we're going to be questioning her today in police station. Well, she was dealt with for a number of offences earlier in the year, as you know. Unfortunately, there are offences which have occurred more recently, and some going back over the last couple of years.
IFED resumes its search. Just like the suspect, her boyfriend proves to be helpful in the hunt for evidence.
Succeed.
The search for evidence spreads to the first floor of the property.
I'll take these two because they're just related to her identity documents.
You give that back an highway.
Yeah, she'll be entitled to everything back.
In less than an hour, the team has unearthed several bags of potential evidence relating to pet insurance claims. Making the search more complicated is the fact that the suspect goes under several aliases.
That's Mrs.
Do you missus?
Yeah.
Even after an hour, the team still isn't used to the smaller inhabitants of the house.
Oh, look.
Who are you?
IFED has seen enough. It has a boot full of potential evidence, leaving the team confident of a conviction.
It is putting money on everyone's insurance policies because the fraud element is always taken into account by the insurers. So hopefully by arresting the suspect today, we'll make some small contribution towards turning things around, so that hopefully one day insurance premiums can start to come down.
If convicted of fraud, the suspect could face a punishing fine and a spell in prison.